Smart, sorry about the AC, of course, when I'm doing my intro, makes noise. I apologize, but Marcus Smart is joining the Los Angeles Lakers, and he is going there because he agreed to a buyout with the Wizards. So now Marcus Smart is going to be a Laker, 2-year, $11 million deal. So let's talk about what this could potentially mean for the Lakers. Again, sorry about the AC. Of course, as soon as I go on, it wants to make noise. But outside of that, I talk about this every live stream too, hilarious. Outside of that, Marcus Smart going to the Lakers is very interesting. Now, Marcus Smart, of course, a lot of people remember him from his Celtics days. You know, he was on that team that went to the NBA Finals in 2022, and he was one of their most important players. He was the anchor on defense. He was obviously their starting point guard at the time, and he was one of the leaders of that team. So when they traded Marcus Smart, actually, if you remember, if you've been here a while, you remember when they traded Marcus Smart, the AC stopped, thank God. Once they traded Marcus Smart, I said it was a tough decision, but I understood that they had to make a move, and that was when they got Porzingis. And so I said offensively, obviously Porzingis makes them better, but they were definitely going to be searching for another point guard, and then luckily Drew Holiday was available, and so that solved, a lot of their issues. But fast forward, Marcus Smart was on the Grizzlies. It didn't really work out there, and obviously now he was on the Wizards, and they bought him out so he can go to, a team of his choice, which obviously, he wants to go to a team that is going to be competing at least next year in his mind. So Marcus Smart is now going to be a Los Angeles Laker. The 2-year, $11 million deal, I feel like, is a good deal for him and for the Lakers. Just because the last couple of years, Marcus Smart really hasn't been able to showcase himself the way that obviously he did with the Celtics, which is why I feel like the market for him wasn't as big, maybe as it would have been if this was 2022, 2023. Which is not his fault, but I feel like that's kind of what factored into his market maybe not being as big. He is still getting a buyout though, so he's getting paid there too. But besides that, I think it's a good deal for the Lakers. Marcus Smart won Defensive Player of the Year. If you remember, I think it was in 2022 when they went to the finals that year. And Marcus Smart was the first guard to win Defensive Player of the Year, I believe, since Gary Payton did it back in, I don't know what year that was, but it had been quite a while since a guard had won Defensive Player of the Year. So that was really significant when he won, for multiple reasons, but for that reason being there have been many very good guards since Gary Payton has won it, and nobody has gotten the award since then. Obviously, because there's been other defenders at different positions who have, I guess, outshined some of those guards on defense, but still, winning Defensive Player of the Year is an accomplishment any day of the week. And again, especially, at the history he made with that. So you, as the Lakers, are getting a player who is going to play some defense. And something that the Lakers, I don't want to say struggle with as a whole, but obviously in their backcourt, their guard position, Luka is not a very good defender. And LeBron, at this point in his career, is not a very good defender. He's 40 years old. You know what I mean? You can't expect him to be an amazing defender at this point in his career. So I say a lot to say. LeBron does play the point at times. Even though he's not a point guard, he plays point a lot. So your backcourt, you can technically say, I know it's Austin Reeves, but I'm just saying, your backcourt, you could say, is Luka and LeBron. And if you want to say it's Austin Reeves and Luka, you still have a defense problem there because Austin Reeves is not the best defender either. So now you add Marcus Smart, who we know is going to play defense. He's not the offensive player that Austin Reeves is or Luka, but he will play defense. And you need a defensive guard on every single team. It is very important to have someone in the backcourt who is at least a really good defender, because you can hide one player who is not the best on defense. Maybe you can even hide two at times if one person is sort of decent but not the best at it. But And I'm not trying to talk down on Luka or LeBron, but I'm just saying, like, the way that Luka and Austin Reeves and LeBron have played defense as of recent, you need a defensive guard. It just is what it is. It's not any shade towards them. They are incredible all in their own ways, but they need defense at the guard position. So I think that alone is a great addition for the Lakers. And we obviously, like I said, on the Celtics, he was like a vocal leader and stuff like that. We know he's a tough player. So like, like he's going to be good in that sense. I don't want to say question, because I don't really have a question around Marcus Smart as a player, of course. Does this move the needle for the Lakers? That is the question. Because the Lakers, their goal is still, to win a championship, right? And I think Marcus Smart is a good addition. I think Marcus Smart makes them better in, certain ways. But does he make them a championship contender? I don't know, because the West is just so loaded. And we still don't even know what's going to happen with LeBron, but just assuming that LeBron's going to be there. I said when I was talking about the Lakers recently, during one of the live streams, I didn't even talk about the fact that they did need to address getting a defensive guard, but I was saying if I'm the Lakers, I need to go out and get a two-way wing player, like basically what Dorian Finney-Smith is. That's what I felt like they needed to go out and get, because first of all, they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, so he's gone. But also, I just felt like that is a position where they are a little bit lacking in that area. So I was saying, if there is someone who can do what Dorian Finney-Smith does, that is who the first player I think they should target is. I said this a few days ago. I didn't even think about the fact that Marcus Smart might be available. I don't know if I just forgot, or I feel like we heard about a buyout a long time ago. Maybe that was when he was with the Grizzlies and it never happened. I don't remember. But regardless, Marcus Smart is now going to be a Laker. So I do think that's a good pickup. And again, I think he's going to make the team better defensively, stuff like that. I still think they need a two-way wing, though. Someone who's going to be offense, defense, 3-and-D guy, Dorian Finney-Smith. Again, someone like him. They need that. They really do, because again, Rui Hachimura, good player. And he honestly, you can classify him as a two-way player. I don't want to say he's elite on defense. I don't want to say he's like the most elite offensive player either, but he's good on both sides. Like, there's a reason they put him on Jokic. Now, Jokic obviously had his way regardless with Rui, but like, they weren't going to put a bad defender on Jokic when they were, facing them in the playoffs and stuff like that. So Rui Hachimura is talented and he's good at a bunch of different things. But I'm saying they need someone who is literally like a lockdown defender at the wing position, but also has, that offense. Because Jared Vanderbilt, if you watch this page, I haven't talked about him in a while, but, back before he got traded to the Lakers, I was saying he was one of the most underrated players because first of all, his defensive ability, his ability to guard multiple positions, his versatility, and although he's not a three-point shooter, of course, he was scoring pretty well. Like, I felt like when he was on the Jazz, if I remember correctly, he was on the Jazz. When he was on the Jazz and when he was on the Timberwolves too. I think I'm trying to get the timeline correct, but I remember when he was on the Timberwolves and I couldn't believe they let him go. And then with the Jazz, we knew that they were kind of rebuilding, so it kind of made sense that they, traded him. But at the same time, he was really young, so he fit the timeline. But regardless, they traded him. And I was saying, like, at that trade deadline, we were hearing about other players being traded, and I didn't hear Jared Vanderbilt's name at all. And I remember, I'm like, if I am every team in the league, I am calling about Jared Vanderbilt, because like I said, his versatility on defense, first of all, is wanted everywhere around the league, but he was also scoring pretty well. Again, not shooting threes. He wasn't averaging 20 a night, but like, it was clear that he could give you like maybe 12, 15 a night. Like, he was doing his thing. And then he gets to the Lakers and he has had his share of injuries. I also feel like he wasn't always utilized the best, like, to his strengths. I feel like he wasn't always put in the best position to, be his best, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not blaming anybody, but it just felt like sometimes you see a player go to a certain team and it's just not either the best fit or, you know, the strategy or whatever on how they're, you know, using that player on the court to do certain things just doesn't necessarily showcase them the best and highlight them the best. And that's kind of what I felt like was happening with Jared Vanderbilt before he was, you know, dealing with all these injuries. But after that, obviously now he's had his injury concerns. But I say all that to say, Jared Vanderbilt, versatile, really, really good defender. Like, teams put him on one of the best offensive players on the other team. But with Jared Vanderbilt, again, his offensive limitations in terms of like shooting the three and stretching the floor and stuff like that, although he can score, but again, not stretching the floor is a big deal in today's NBA. Like, they want everybody to be able to at least shoot threes. Now, I personally think everybody should just be maximizing what they're best at. I don't think you need to shoot threes in today's NBA. Like, if that's just not what you're best at, I just don't understand putting someone in a position where they're doing stuff that is not going to, you know, get the best out of them. But regardless, like, you can't, in today's NBA, you can't have like 4 non-shooters on the floor. But I'm saying I feel like an individual doesn't have to be a three-point shooter. But with the Lakers, they definitely want someone who can shoot the three and space the floor. Because LeBron plays best, because LeBron is still there right now, LeBron plays best when there are shooters on the floor. And Luka also plays some of his best basketball with a lob threat, which is why they got DeAndre Ayton, but also with shooters, because when he was on the Mavericks, he had his lob threats in Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, but he also had, at one time, Dorian Finney-Smith. He also had Tim Hardaway Jr. at one point. Obviously, Kyrie is like, I mean, that's an unfair comparison because Kyrie is Kyrie, but like, Jalen Brunson was there too, although like, obviously Jalen Brunson was in a different role at that time, but like, Luka also plays best with guys who can space the floor for him in any way, shape, or form. So I say all that to say, I still think the Lakers need to go out and get a 3-and-D guy somewhere out there. I don't know if like that player is available right now, but I still think they need to address that issue. Again, I think Marcus Smart makes them better, of course, and it's a very good deal for them, but I don't know that he makes them a championship contender. And it's not even necessarily about his impact on the team, because he could have a really large impact positively, or a positive impact rather. But if you look at the West, a lot of teams not only got better this offseason, but do we think that this Lakers roster is better than some of them? That's the question. Because, like, I'm sure most people would say they're not better than OKC. OKC just won the championship, and they're bringing the whole team back. So, okay, we'll take them out of the equation for a minute. But the Rockets just got Kevin Durant, and they took Dorian Finney-Smith from the Lakers, and they have Clint Capella, and that roster is very good. So it's not even necessarily about, like, the Rockets necessarily winning the championship, because I don't know if they're going to win the championship. But if we had a 7-game series, who do you take in the series? You take the Rockets or you take the Lakers as currently constructed? I think a lot of people would take the Rockets because, especially with the addition of Kevin Durant, like, they're not going to have that same issue of, like, we need a basket. Like, Kevin Durant will do that. So I'm not saying necessarily what the outcome would be, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like a lot of people would lean Houston. And then you have the Clippers, which the Clippers, you know, it's just a health concern every year, and just something seems to always happen. But the Clippers, again, really talented, really good roster every year. Like, you look at the roster, all those players, like, you can't say anything bad about that. The Warriors, listen, that team looked really, really good last year before Steph Curry got hurt. And if he doesn't get hurt, they might beat Minnesota, and then they're in the Western Conference Finals, and who knows what happens, right? So you got them too, and they're still out there, like, what's going to happen with Jonathan Kuminga? The reports are that they're probably still getting Al Horford and Anthony Melton, so that'll add some depth to their roster. And then again, we'll see what happens with the Jonathan Kuminga situation. So you have to worry about the Warriors too. And then you have, I said the Denver. Denver got better this offseason too. And a lot of people still think Jokic is the best player in the world, or they think it's Shea, Jokic, whatever you think. Jokic is still 1 or 2. And like I said, I think that roster got better. And talking about the Lakers, I know that Luka wasn't necessarily there when, it was the Anthony Davis, LeBron losing to Denver, but Jokic seems to have their number right now. So I just mentioned like 5 or 6 teams where could the Lakers beat those teams? Absolutely. You have Luka and LeBron. That already puts you in a special category. Could they also lose those teams? The point is, like, they are not overwhelmingly better than any of those teams if you think they are better. Because, like, you can maybe make a toss-up. Like, some of them could be, like, closer than you think. But even if you think they're better, it's not like they're so overwhelmingly better that they could not lose any of those teams. And so, again, the Lakers' goal is obviously to win a championship, like everybody's goal. And I think they have done, decent this offseason by getting DeAndre Ayton, although I guess they got kind of lucky with that. I guess getting Marcus Smart is also kind of lucky that he was bought out. But hey, listen, the NBA is about luck too. Like, you have to get lucky, to win a championship and get, certain players. So I think the Lakers have done all right this offseason. I don't think they've gotten worse, but I don't know if they are a championship contender as currently constructed, and that is the goal. But again, what's going to happen with LeBron? That is really the question, because if LeBron asks for a trade and they trade him, depending on what they get back, we could be talking about the Lakers completely differently. We could either be talking about the Lakers as they got worse, although, like, I feel like a LeBron package would be a decent package, of course. But we could be looking at the Lakers and being like, hold on a minute, like, maybe this team has a shot to go to the championship. It just depends. Again, I don't know if LeBron is leaving. I'm torn on whether or not he's leaving. And I've said this for a while because I'm like, yes, it makes sense for him to stay, of course. And I think Bronny is factoring into his decision as well. I think a lot of people aren't really considering Bronny as factoring, but I think that's a big part of his decision on what's going to happen with Bronny, or if Bronny's going to go with him or whatever, if he does leave. I think that's a big part of his decision. Like, there's a reason he wanted Bronny drafted to the Lakers. He didn't want Bronny drafted to the Lakers so he could just leave him a year later. Now, obviously, things happen in the NBA and stuff like that, and he's obviously excited that Bronny is in the NBA regardless of if he's going to be with him or not, next year or this year. But it's just like he talks so much about playing with Bronny. It's hard for me to imagine that he would leave Bronny. So I feel like if he does get traded, Bronny is going to go with him. That's just my opinion. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just how I see it. It's just hard for me to imagine, like, he's not with Bronny. I just feel like that's a really, really big factor into the decision. That's my opinion. I don't think it's as much so, like, the roster construction, even though it is because he wants to win a championship, but I feel like Bronny is a bigger factor than people are considering. But if the right opportunity pops up for LeBron, I mean, listen, LeBron has done crazier things. I'm sure people thought he was going to leave Cleveland the first time. I'm sure, the analysts back then had all the inside scoop that he was going to leave and stuff like that. But I don't know that everybody thought he was going to Miami to team up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. I don't know that everybody thought that was going to actually happen, even if they heard rumors. So LeBron, he marches to the beat of his own drum. So we'll see what happens there. So thank you guys so much for watching.